Hi everyone, it's Jan with What You Make It, and I am making progress in my studio. I know the part that you can see has not changed one little bit, but I'm really excited. I'm actually beginning to see progress, and I told somebody today that it's not so much the light at the end of the tunnel, but I actually can see the tunnel from where I'm at. So if I'll just keep at it and be faithful to do a little bit every day, soon I will be done. Yay, yes, 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 and we can go on to make some really fun projects this fall. So in the meantime, I'm giving myself another little break, and I thought I would share a quick tutorial with you on what I call Stipple Distress. I've used it for years. Even before there were distress inks, this was a way that I would use just regular inks to get a distressed look. And once Tim Holtz came out with his fabulous distress inks, I certainly began to use them for this. I shared this card on my blog a few days ago, maybe a week, and it was the card that I made for Weston's birthday, and it has some really good dimensional look to it. And I had several of you ask me how I had made it, and I told you I used my Stipple Distress technique. And then here is a layout that I shared on my blog that I also use the Stipple Distress technique. And while I'm in this mode, this cleaning mode, please go and check out my blog, because I am trying to do some regular posts of maybe some design techniques or even some photography things that would be some fun suggestions for you while I'm not in major creative mode. So what is the Stipple Distress technique? It basically relies on the stipple brush. This is what you use with stencils and that sort of thing, but I love using it with ink. Now I'm going to show you how I did this particular one. There's a couple of ways to do this technique, and I've started on this one. You can see that it's there. You can use it with a mask or with a stencil, and so I took this mask from Tattered Angels. Don't you love when we can get multiple uses out of our tools? Yes, you could spray your ink in there, but I'm going to use some distress ink, and I'm going to use walnut stain to begin with. And I basically have one of these for each of my main colors, kind of like we do with our the sponge applicators for the distress. I just kind of do color family. So very simple. Go ahead and rub it into the ink, put your mask down, and some masks will have a little sticky on the back, and if you are not really wanting to get your fingers dirty, you can either put some temporary adhesive on the back. The Tattered Angels has great masks, but they, because they're designed to use with their mist, they're not really thinking you're going to be doing this much working down into it. So they are not sticky on the back side. And you just put your brush down and rub in circular motions, and you can use a variety of browns. I could go from antique linen to tea dye to the walnut stain, and it will give me a gradient. But look how nice that turns out. Really nicely defined. But then on the card, I took it up another notch, and what I did is I went with my Copic marker, and I used, there we go, I used W5. And to get these, to make it have this dimensional look, what I did was I went and I pretended my light source was coming over here, and so there was going to be shadows on the underneath side. So I just went along and put these in. And when you're first putting this on, it looks a little harsh, but you have to remember that your Copics are going to dry a little lighter. So just remember, try to remember where your shadows are going to fall. If this were actually a dimensional item and light was falling on it, then the part that was raised up is going to be light, the part that's recessed is going to be dark. And let's do this kind of, let's show you this one. So right now my light is basically coming from up above, but I'm going to change my light here for just a second. And you can see now my light is coming this way. Do you see that things that are on the back side of this, you can see the shadow here. And anything that's facing towards the light has the brightest color on it. So sometimes when I'm working, I do that little exercise like I just did to remind myself where the light and shadows would fall. And because, you know, I didn't go to art school. I have to use all my little tricks and tips that I can find, and just add my little shadows in there. I'm not going to make you watch me do all of that, but the other thing that really makes this card pop is that in addition to the shadow, okay, so you can see the shadows that are in there. Do you see that I went back and I did white highlights? So I love the Signo Uniball, favorite white pen. The key to it working well is to go slow, and you want to go with white on the opposite side of where your shadows were. If you're down inside, you put white, you'd put it down in here or right next to. And this begins to make your elements have dimension to them. And it's just fun. Fun and easy. Very fun, Stipple Distress, using your masks and that sort of thing. Now, the other one that I showed you, the layout, Heaven's Canvas. The way that I accomplished that is I wanted to make my background kind of have that feel of worn leather or really distressed paper. And so what I do is I'm just going to use this particular piece of paper, and I take a pretty substantial piece of cardstock and I tear an edge to it. And if I want the edge to be distressed, then I'm going to start with my lightest. I'm going to come in here. You see that okay? And this becomes my mask. And I just do the distress, or the Stipple Distress technique. And you can see it begins to give you that. I'm going to come up here where you can see. And when I pick it up, I can go a little bit past that to soften it, because I'm want a little bit of this color all over. Okay. But let's say that we want the edge to be the lightest, not the darkest. Well, then you do the exact opposite. And I'm going to go with some tea dye this time. It gives you a really nice faux edge and a very different look from your distress inks with your sponge. It has a lot more of a thready, mottled, if you will, appearance. Let me just remind you with this that if you start on and you come on, start off on your craft mat and come on, that you get that kind of look. So you can see it really is a different look that you get with the Stipple Distress. It's just another tool to have in your toolbox of techniques. Super simple, but it can be a great way to create a journaling area on a layout, a great way to create an edge on a mini book, a nice way to create an element for a card. So I hope that you will try this. You can get these at, you know, your big box store. I do not. I've had these for several years, but they are they're not expensive. So try them. I think you will like them. And the other thing that I'm going to show you just very quickly is I will be making another video at some point for you, but I want to invite you to maybe be a part of something that I'm doing. A very dear friend of mine is a physician's assistant, and he went back into the Army Reserves. He had served in the Army several years ago, and he went back into the reserves, and about a month ago was shipped out to Afghanistan. And he is just a great guy, and he's working as a medic over there with our soldiers, and he has 3 precious boys and a precious wife, and just, I know it's hard for him to be away from them, but he just has the best heart. And he shared with us that particularly in the outposts where they are, that soldiers don't necessarily have a place to go and buy things like soap and just regular hygiene kinds of things, and particularly some of the young guys don't have family that can send it to them. And so several of us from my church are putting together boxes of things. You can do that through the APO thing with the post office, and it's fairly inexpensive to ship things. So we are stocking him up with things to share with guys, because he said within days of getting there he had given away just about everything that he had taken with him. But he also said that there's another thing that just kind of breaks his heart, and that is when there are guys there that soldiers that when mail call comes, they don't have any mail waiting for them. And so in addition to sending him the things to give to the soldiers, I felt like maybe we should send him some cards that are, you know, a word from home, a word from somebody that is thinking about them and appreciating them. And so I've been making some cards, and you can see that, and I'll show you, I'll do a video on how I do this. It has been pretty much, I've been creating them kind of in mass production style. I made a bunch of tags, and then I'm using bits and pieces from my stash to just create some cards to say thanks, or we're thinking about you. This is a cool technique. I'll show you how I did this very cool wood grain technique. It's a combination of embossing and stamping. Here's another example of it. But if you would be interested in making a couple of cards, what we want is cards that, you know, could be a thank you, or you're in our thoughts and prayers, or just appreciate your service. But if you would go ahead and write a note in them, if you're interested in doing that, send me a private message here, and I'll let you know how we can connect and get those over to my friend Jason in Afghanistan, who is willing to love on some of our soldiers for us. Anyway, I hope that you are having a great weekend, and I hope you'll try this Stipple Distress technique. It's fun. Don't have to just use browns. You can do it with just about any color. Love you guys. Hope you're having a great weekend. I'll be back soon with something new to share. In the meantime, I've got to go clean. Bye.